Good morning, friends. As most of you have already heard, the shooter in the Maine rampage killing has been found. His body has been found. He deleted himself. No real details yet on what firearm he used. As most of you guys know, he utilized a .308 rifle during his shooting, so not sure if that was the same rifle that he used to self-delete. But nevertheless, the manhunt obviously is over. We talked about this a couple of days ago, that it was very likely that this guy had taken his own life. The media had a field day with it, acting like this guy was some kind of John Rambo. Oh, he's, reserve military or whichever, so he knows how to work out in the elements. Come on, please give me a break. Please don't try to go there that every single person in the military or in the reserves is some kind of freaking John Rambo. That's certainly not the case. They are not trained that well. And as time goes on and our military gets weaker and weaker and softer, the training is even less. So I have a lot less idea of thinking that these guys are some kind of a badass out in the woods in today's type of military. But nevertheless, the threat is over because the guy is gone. His body was found near the Maine Recycling Corporation, which is in Lisbon Falls, and accounts are saying that this guy worked here. The killer worked there at some point, so I don't think he was working there recently. Not sure or not clear if he'd been let go or if he quit, but he was not apparently an employee as of the time of the shooting. But again, his body was found nearby. They won't say exactly where at this point. I wanted to point out that the victims ranged in age from 14 to 76. I think it's very important that we think about the victims and their families instead of trying to focus on banning an inanimate object and making things hard on other Americans to defend themselves and their families. We should be thinking about the families who have gone through this. Again, ages 14. I have a 14-year-old son, so this hits close to home as far as being able to relate to that. And as old as 76, and my mother was 76 when she passed away. So one thing that kind of stuck out to me and really made me think about situational awareness and things like that is, for the people who were murdered at the bar, they were playing a cornhole game and they were deaf people. They were from the deaf community. Think about that. I want you to think about that. First of all, think about how loud that .308 round sounded inside a closed building with no hearing protection. Imagine that. Imagine how loud that was. Probably low ceilings and all that kind of stuff. The bowling alley was probably bad enough, but the little bar and grill area with the lower ceilings, that had to have been an incredible sound whenever that round went off inside there. But think about these people from the deaf community. It's one, you have one of your main senses missing. Blindness and deafness, those are two, from a situational awareness standpoint, those are kind of big deals. So obviously they say that their senses, like sense of sight, would be keener because they don't have that sense of hearing. But I want you to think about that. They may have had that advantage to not have the .308 round in their heads, but if they weren't facing the shooter when all of this went down, they would have had to notice the reaction of everybody else in there if the person was behind them, or else they certainly would have been caught off guard. You know what I'm saying? So it just really made me think, made my mind go somewhere as to how much we rely on our senses and don't realize that we're relying on our senses again. And sometimes smell as well, obviously, gunpowder and things like that. I mean, it's possible they probably would have picked up on that really fast, But if you think about that, when you're trying to take advantage of situational awareness, sometimes when things happen, all of a sudden things close up on you and you get tunnel vision. I just can't imagine what it's like to live in their world, to not have that sense of hearing to add to your, I guess, defensive nature, so to speak. Very, very sad day. I'm still sickened at all these people on the far left who are calling for gun control. You got the Swallowswell guy out in California that always does that. Joe Biden, of course, his handlers have spoon-fed him things to say. It's just sad to see this because now they're talking about high-capacity magazines and, of course, the whole assault weapons thing. I'm getting tired of the whole quotes thing that I have to do when I use their nomenclature. But nevertheless, it's just a sad thing because these people had every opportunity to stop this guy. They literally had him for 2 weeks in isolation for mental reasons, and they let him go. We're talking about the government, the Army, or whoever, whatever his branch. I believe it was the Army that he was in. Yet they blame everybody else. How crazy and insane is it To have an organization like the federal government, which Joe Biden is in charge of, supposedly, at least on paper he is, how crazy is it to have them blame a gun for what a person did when they had the chance to prevent that person from doing that? How crazy is that? Why is nobody asking them the questions? Why is no one asking Joe Biden and his little group, wait a minute, can you give us more on the backstory about this guy and how he was crazy and how he threatened to shoot up his National Guard base? Why is nobody asking that? Why do they let this guy jump? Well, we know why. The media controls the narrative. But they let this guy jump to something totally unrelated that would not have done anything to stop anything. A killer decides to kill, and a killer will kill. Unless you can snap your fingers and make every single gun in the world magically disappear, along with any opportunity to rebuild another one, it's not possible to stop these types of people from killing other people with firearms. They will find a way. And I also want to point out a little bit of hypocrisy and plays on words that I'm not real happy with. I don't like the way this is being softened up to make us more accepting of red flag gun laws. You've got Susan Collins and a plethora of other people who have gone out there and said, you know, this guy should have been caught. You know, we have yellow flag gun laws, which yellow's supposed to not be as bad as red, right? A yellow flag law is the same as a red flag law. It's just a different person can put this order or this request in. In the state of Maine, your National Guard people couldn't be the ones to submit to the authorities to have this guy's guns taken from him. Only law enforcement can make that request, which is really stupid and silly, because the National Guard is acting like, well, you know, we really couldn't do anything because, you know, we're not the ones that can petition the courts for this. Bull crap. The whole mechanism is in place so that it has to go through law enforcement, meaning the National Guard people should have notified law enforcement if they thought that was the case. Now, I'm not in support of these laws at all. I'm telling you, they're blaming their set of laws for why their unconstitutional laws didn't work. But my issue with all of this is not that they didn't try to implement their yellow flag gun law. It's the fact that they're calling a red flag gun law a yellow flag gun law to make you and I more accepting of it. No matter what, it's unconstitutional. If they would have disarmed this man and still let him out there, knowing that he was threatening to kill people, that's on them, just like this shooting spree is on them. You have to look at it like this. Disarming somebody because you think they're going to kill somebody is one of the stupidest things you could do if you're allowing that person still to be out there. Now, what do you do with the person? I don't know. It's not my field. What I do know is you don't take their constitutional rights from them if you truly feel like they're a threat. Let me explain the stupidity of their little red flag and yellow flag gun laws. If you truly, in your heart, on paper, factually, according to you, think that a person is an absolute, without a doubt, threat, so much so that you are willing to violate their constitutional rights, then why in the hell is that person walking on the street? Why? Do you not think there's another tool that they can acquire to murder people? Are you that stupid? Why would we allow a person who said, I'm going to kill a lot of people? Do you think removing the gun is like, cool, we win? There's no way for him to kill anybody. We're safe now. What this tells me is you never thought the guy was a threat to begin with. It was all about just disarming a person. When you utilize a red flag gun law to disarm somebody, yet you leave that person on the street, you have told me to my face and blatantly that you didn't think they were a threat all along. The only goal that you had throughout that entire process was taking weapons from a person, disarming Americans for whatever reason, and threat is the excuse you're going to use to try to accomplish that goal. I'm glad this guy's off the street. I'm glad this guy did us all a favor by ending his own life. I hate that he ruined so many people's lives. So many resources were used out there to try to find this guy when he probably was dead within the first day. I wish more, quote, mass shooters would end their own lives instead of us having to deal with them and do it quick and early. But I wish they would do that before they actually go on these killings, because the fact that they ruined so many families' lives out there is really disheartening to me that that's even an issue. You know, I understand you being mad at the world and, of course, mad at yourself and unhappy with yourself. And I certainly don't want to sound like I support any kind of suicide. But if your next step is going to be taking the lives of innocent people, just do yours first.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over!